4th of January 2023. Got myself caught out by that one. This is one of those what the fuck moments, let's talk editions. The past few days, Twitter was buzzing again with racism and racial conflict and racial friction. It was horrible to see. But if you look through the tweets and you look objectively, you find a pattern there. It's always the same group that is driving the thing, roughly the same group that is against it, and the group that is trying to bring sanity to them. And it was very disturbing to see some of the tweets open, threatening violence and ugly, nasty things. I myself try to remain cool in those things, and I also reported a number of accounts. The fact of the matter is, the racism thing is driven by a group of people with a sinister agenda. Racial differences is a reality, and nobody can get away from that. So if a person tells you he does not see race or he does not see color or what, he's talking nonsense. Stay away from any engagement with such a person, because he is inherently a liar. I have always been of the opinion that race is not the main thing and the main point of friction. I think it's more about culture. And I did a Skidmark on that point, and you will find it here in my channel. Culture plays a big role in our daily lives and conduct. I just saw on the news last night about how many young guys has died now again from those initiation camps. And the reality is, that is their culture. But a certain group in that culture does not acknowledge the realities of medical advancement. I mean, those guys are circumcised by untrained and unskilled people. And there are many mishaps. And tragically, many of those mishaps leads to death. But it's their culture, and you won't be able to change it. The best you can do is to try to get these guys that runs these schools, get them trained properly, so that they can do the cultural thing without killing the bloke. That is the thing. It's not racism, it's culture. I believe that disrespect, fear, and jealousy is big drivers behind ugly racism. Think about that. Disrespect, fear, and jealousy. BEE, entrenched racism, and has nothing to do with empowerment. We also see blacks turning on Indians, and they are vicious. Listen to this tweet. This Lucky Kunene said, "The most racist people in South Africa are Indians." And then this girl chimed in, "Indians are the worst race after whites. I just cringe when I see them. I don't even like interacting with them. So disgusting." I read that tweet and I decided this is bullshit. And I reported the tweet. And as you can see on that screenshot, Twitter asked if I want to attach other tweets, and then I had a look on her timeline and I was absolutely stunned by the things that she was saying. So in the end, I included 7 tweets, and this was the result. Violation found, and you can stop the thing if you want to read that whole thing, but that account was sanctioned And that's the story. I don't revel in things like this, but it was absolutely unacceptable that she can send those tweets out. And there is thousands that read it and listen to her shit. And all it does is it turns the heat up. If we look at BEE, a BEE appointed person will always be aware of the fact that it was a BEE appointment and not about merit. Right or wrong, that label will sit. And I have heard many discussions around this. True empowerment is simply removing all and any obstacles that prevent anybody to compete without race being a factor. Then sit back and let natural economic realities run. Government must make sure opportunities are equalized, not outcome. If you try to equalize outcome, you are done, bound to fail, and we see it every day in practice. South Africa had a massive pool of white skills, knowledge and experience. This pool could have mentored millions of blacks to get into the economy. True empowerment. But with BEE, the white pool was destroyed, blacks gained positions that they could not handle, and everything crashed and burned. And we see it. I don't need to explain this or give you examples. It is all around us. Incompetence runs rampant. Who benefits from racist policies? Who? Only politicians. It is only politicians that benefit from it. Successful black entrepreneurs want no part of BEE. It is the weak that wants BEE. Racists use Orania, and they make big stories about Orania. And I seen EFF posters that said they're going to go and destroy that place. They will go and burn it down. They will go and take the land. Always fucking violence and destruction, because they are fucking losers. They live in the townships, which is in shambles around them. Now they want to go and get into their buses and go down to the center of the fucking Karoo and burn a successful white township down. Why? What does Orania do to their lives every day? How does Orania affect them? And I saw this tweet this morning. Now, if you are a Twitter user, I suggest you take that username and check it on Twitter and go and listen to what this guy says. Orania has nothing to do with black people being poor. From 1994, the ANC have stolen enough money that could have ended black poverty in South Africa. We all know it. South Africans must refuse to be diverted by people like Panyaze Lesufi and the ANC. ANC is an enemy of the blacks. And this is what this guy, you should actually take some time and find that tweet on Twitter and listen to it. The people in Orania lives their lives without disturbing the peace. Same in the village in Transkei. But force these two communities together and the shit will fly. It is natural. And it's got nothing to do with race, it's all about culture. If you look on the plains in the Serengeti, you will see impala, buffalo, wildebeest, zebras, etc. all grazing together on that plain. But if you look carefully, the different species stay basically together, roughly. Yeah, there are a few on the edges that will mix and so, but roughly they are together. Why is that? Why is that? Could it be simply that the impala does not feel comfortable amongst the buffaloes? Could it be that the blue bears feels uncomfortable among the buffalo? What? But it is there, it is natural, and there's no problem. The only shit starts on that plane when a lion arrives. BEE drove whites out of the formal and civil sectors. They realized that their only hope on survival is self-employment. And they did it. Great examples for black entrepreneurs. But the blacks will never get the full benefit because whites have stopped to share skills. Why? Because they must always watch out for some politician to jump on them and use BEE as an excuse to steal the white business. That is a reality, and that is something that you must take note of. And the black people are the losers. They are the big losers. And then you get that woman that made the tweet. I handled it in one of my Skidmarks, and she said, blacks are the only race on earth that has got natural intelligence. They do not need to study for anything. They can be whatever they want to be: engineers, doctors, scientists, pilots, anything they want to be. They don't need to study for it because they have natural intelligence. What a load of shit. Many in the black middle class fears every day that they may lose the jobs if BEE should be cancelled. And we see them drive lots of the racial conflict on social media. And this series of tweets was an eye-opener to me when I read it. Interesting opinion heard today. Those black South Africans who exhibit the most hatred towards white South Africans are from the relatively new black middle class, as they see white South Africans as a threat on that middle class level. But very little of the same sentiment exists among poor black South Africans. And that is so true. I mean, I live in a communities where there's a lot of black people, and I've got black workers and so. And I've said it many times to my sons, if you go to town, have you ever been threatened by a black cashier or by a black guy at the fuel station or things like that? It just does not happen. In our everyday lives, in our everyday interactions with each other, racism is not a real problem. It's not that people, the big thing that is controlling the interaction between communities is respect. But you do have these guys that is on the social media that stirs the shit for what reason, I don't know. Black middle class in a relatively precarious situation, as very many of them depend on government jobs, favors for their newfound status. White South Africans and other minorities been relying very little on government in that sense, so actually they are more secure. And this is very important. This is a very valid statement that this guy makes here. It goes about security, which perhaps explains the levels of racist vitriol aimed at whites on South African Twitter, but a different picture in real life. And that is so true. And we see it. We see it with our own eyes. So did they benefit from BEE? Sure they did. But they could not get security from BEE. Are blacks actually empowered by BEE? No, they are actually enslaved by it. That BEE appointment can just as easily be taken away by the same person that gave it out in the first place. And that is a reality. The economy is tanking and the tax base is shrinking fast. Unemployment is through the roof and will get worse. Where will the money come from to sustain SASSA? These are the things that these racist troops on social media never answer. They never respond if you ask the question. They drive this, we want the land shit, and they are terrorizing our farmers. Do they realize that if South Africa loses its food security, they are doomed? They are doomed. All of us are doomed. Because this government does not have the money to import food to feed the hungry crowds. They cannot. It is our locally produced food that is affordable, not imported food. Marshallspoort was in the news, but what nobody speaks about is the total destruction of all municipal recreation facilities. Look at the conditions of the swimming pools and the Durban beachfront. Just look at it. Those things are gone. They are done. They are dilapidated. Gaten McKenzie started with a drive in Beaufort West of cleaning up those pools and so, and it does make a difference to the community. And if you look at this tweet, once again, the user is there, you can find it and get to the video. This was in a pool where a lot of black young men were molesting this black girl, and they were ripping her swimming clothes off in the pool like an attacking pack of wild dogs. Fortunately, one black man came up and pulled her out of the pool. This is disgusting, but this is what they do. This is culture. It's nothing about race, it's their culture. Now the reality is that here and there in the country, there are white-owned facilities that still function. And naturally, the facilities are overwhelmed on holidays. Whites are less than 4% of the population. And when you look at the crowds in these facilities, there is rarely white persons visible. It is just natural in a relationship of 100 to 4 that the 4 will feel threatened. That is just natural. Race is a reality that can never be denied. And the person that says he does not see color, well, steer clear. He is a liar. And if you listen to what Thomas Sowell said, the word racism is like ketchup. It can be put on practically anything, and demanding evidence makes you a racist. How true is that? And what a pity that these racist blacks don't read things like this. And to end this, I'm just going to say again, think about the racism incidents. Think carefully, look at the facts, look at the surrounding evidence, and 9 out of 10 times you will find it was not about race, but about culture. And on that note, I hope 2023 brings a lot of happiness to your life, and keep your eyes open and don't get pulled into the whirlpools of racism. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Have a great day.